So a lot of us were working from home. So therefore, we needed to save you or give you a discount because you weren't commuting. The exposure wasn't there. So therefore, a lot of our carriers were giving anywhere from up to 20% off of your auto insurance, and they were refunding those clients either in a form of a check or a credit to their account if there was any balances owed. So definitely, one way that you can save money is by calling your carrier, and if you're still working from home, and let them know, I'm not driving those, 5 miles, whatever the mileage may be. Yeah. And you should definitely get that reviewed because definitely will save you quite a bit of money. The more insurance you have with one carrier, the more of a savings. We call it a bundle. And you can save up to 20 to 30% on auto insurance. And actually, in all your policies, the more policies you have, each one of those policies will get a discount. Yes, great question. So if you've been a homeowner for more than, let's say, 2 years, as we know right now, the cost of rebuilding, it has increased. I mean, you buy just a piece of wood and it's like 3 times as much, So if you've owned your home and have not had a review in the last 2 years, I would advise you to get that reviewed because the replacement cost on your property is much different than in the last even 1 year ago. So make sure you get that replaced because in this area, you should at least be at least $250 per square foot in order to have your home replaced in case of a fire or a total loss.
So what is mortgage forbearance? For mortgage forbearance is a negotiated time that you talk with your lender and you say, I cannot make the payments anymore. And so what they do is they do a pause or they renegotiate with you on your mortgage payments. Okay, that's what forbearance is. The president signed the CARES Act in March 27, 2020 to help homeowners with forbearance who had a loss of income and could not make their payments anymore. And so it was originally negotiated for 180 days, and then they added on another 180 days and a couple of more months on top of that. So it was done during the pandemic. I know that millions of homeowners took forbearance. Your credit is not affected, so you don't have to worry about that as long as your mortgage was paid on time up to the point you took forbearance. Okay, so your credit is not affected. All right, and it's run and managed by the Consumer Protection Finance Board, and that was put into place remember when all the homeowners in the early 2000s and all that stuff that happened before federal regulation, the CFPB was appointed to now manage all of this, to make sure there's no more bad loans being put there, to manage all the lenders, to make sure they're doing the right things, okay? And they are very strict about all this stuff. So I'm gonna have some information on them at the end so you can call them if you have questions. But they manage all the mortgage lenders now. So these are the options under forbearance. One is a repayment plan. And a repayment plan is a portion of what you owe is added to your payment each month. Okay? So what the loan servicer should be doing is talking to you and finding out what are you comfortable with in paying back whatever that amount is you owe. Okay? So that's one of the options. The other option is a deferral or partial claim. And this option allows you, all that money all the missed payments are now put as subordinate lien against your home, and it sits there until you refinance, you sell your home, or you terminate your mortgage. Okay, what terminate means you paid it all to the end. Okay, so that's called a subordinate lien, and they call that a deferral or partial claim. Okay, the next one is a modification. A loan modification is you just can't make a payment and you can't add any more on. So they're going to look at what the amount of the loan is and come up with an amount that you can afford every month. Okay? Now, when you do that, it's going to add time to paying off your loan. Okay? But it is an option for those who just cannot continue to make that payment anymore, and there's no way that they can add any more onto that. Okay? So that's another option. And the last option is reinstatement, which is when you pay the lump sum of whatever the amount is you owed. Okay, and some people might have that money put away and are able to do it, but None of the loan servicers can demand that you do that. That is against the rules, okay? So the federal government is not allowing that. They want the loan services to work with those borrowers who have now need to pay this money back. So this is something, and that's why I'm mentoring the CFPB, because they manage all this, okay? Conventional loan is a loan that's been backed by Fannie and Freddie Mac. It's the most common loan. Most people have that, and they're offering all the different options that I just went through with you. So they're allowing any of those options that work for you. They will make it work, okay? So that's a conventional loan. FHA is doing the COVID-19 standalone partial claim, which is the deferral or partial claim. So it's a subordinate lien, whatever that amount that you owe sits in the side, doesn't have to be paid back. It just sits there until you refinance, you sell your home, or that mortgage terminates. And then on VA loans, they offer all the different options. And with VA, they're very good. They really want to make it work for the veterans, so they'll work with any of these options here. So I was going to talk a little bit about refinance, because for a lot of these people, that could be a great way to go, because interest rates are so low. And last year, they didn't take advantage of it because they were in forbearance. Okay, so if a refinance is an option, with the borrower, what that homeowner needs to do is they need to make 3 straight payments. So that would be July, August, and September. Then they can refinance, possibly at a lower rate than they already have, and all that money just goes back into one loan. And they could actually conceivably be saving money every month too. Let's say they have an interest rate of 4.5% right now. Well, the rates are now 3%, 3.25%, right now. They're pretty low. The federal government just came out yesterday. They are not raising interest rates. Okay, they're going to stay low for the foreseeable future. They're saying that they probably will not go up until the end of 2022 or early 2023. Okay, so this is a great time, and they're trying to help these people that are in forbearance to possibly refinance because they didn't take advantage of it last year.
So basically, in the last 5 years, this is what the market looks like in the area. The red line is Ventura County. The blue line is pretty much like most of Southern California. It's our entire MLS that we have here. We work with other MLSs in the state. But as you can see, back 5 years ago, the median home price was almost about $550,000. And as it is today, we're looking at the median home price is in the mid 7s, which is crazy. This market is crazy. We're all like looking at it like. But anyway, so if you had to sell your home, it's obviously a really great time to sell your home. And the next thing we have here are the days on the market. So back in 2016, it was taking almost 70 days for a house to sell. And now we're less than 20 days where houses on average are on the market. And a lot of times are a lot faster than that. So that's the days on the market. And then for the monthly supply, back in 2016, we were looking at 10 months of supply. So what that means is that back then, it would take 10 months if you were to sell every house that was on the market. Right now, it's under 2 months. So we just don't have a lot of inventory right now. So anyway, so people that are thinking about selling their home, obviously this is a good time. It is a seller's market right now. And then just a little bit about selling your home. And I don't know how many of you, obviously, you have loans and things like that. But these are just some of the things that we do as professionals to help our clients, pricing the home in our market. Right now, with our listings, I used to be able to look back the last 6 months and I could give my clients an idea of what we were looking at. Now, I'm going 2 months back at the most, and we're really having to look at what's going on with the market so that we price the home accordingly. So that's going on, preparing your home for sale, doing the pre-marketing. One of the things that our team has is we have all the technology. We have the drone and the Matterport. So we do the walkthrough virtual tours. We have professional photographers that help us. And we also look at the staging of the home, make sure that you're going to get top dollar for it too, and the curb appeal and everything. And then obviously listing the home and working on the offers and negotiations. And especially right now with the way the market is, we are working really hard on the negotiating part of this. It's just something that a lot of us realtors, it's just crazy right now as far as negotiating also. So we have that, and then obviously the contract, and then going through inspections and all the things to look for. And right now, especially in this area, and like Ventura City in particular, with the sewer lateral reports that have to be done, there's a lot of things that you should know that we know as professionals that we're doing all the time to make sure that our clients are protected in the long run. And then obviously then you have the closing and you sell the home. So that's one of the things that the benefits of using a realtor. And then the other option would be that maybe you rent the home if you can't sell it at the time, or you don't want to sell it at the time, and maybe you rent it. So we also own a property management company, and it's similar. The rental market right now, there's not a lot of homes for rent. We have tenants calling us all the time looking for places. Pricing the rentals and getting them in, as far as the market. Preparing the home for rent. That's another thing. Just like if you're selling a home, you want it to be in good condition so you're getting top rental dollar for it. And the marketing, and we also do full tenant screening, background checks, everything like that. And then of course all the lease and all the paperwork and all legalities, and it's just that way it's on us to make sure everything's done correctly. And then the walkthrough inspections and managing the property and taking care of it for the term so that you as a landlord don't have to worry about this. A lot of people we're finding are what we call accidental landlords, like they didn't really want this, and so they're not really sure what to do with it, and it can be really stressful. So those are things that we can take care of and kind of take that stress off of them.
So a will basically is something that pretty much everybody should have if they don't own a home. Okay, so if you own a home, it needs to be a living trust. A will is good if it's under, they changed it, it's now $166,000. They call it a small estate. Okay, so if it's a small estate and you do not own real estate, then a will is sufficient. So I'm not saying that a will is not good. It is, if you own a home, it needs to be in the name of a trust. Basically, a will says who gets what. The requirements, it's signed by a testator, witnesses. It can be handwritten. Todd and I have a will that somebody had written on it was with crayon. And it really looked like somebody that was probably 5 years old had written for his wife, and it was good. Okay, so this is the difference between a will and a trust. Having a will is better than nothing. It can be determined by the state. They may not be consistent with your wishes. So a will could be like 3 to 5 pages. It could be one paragraph handwritten on a piece of paper like this, and that would be sufficient. The problem with the will is that if it isn't notarized and if it isn't valid, it's very easily contestable. If you own a home, I can't stress this enough, and you do not have a living trust, there will be probate. You will have to go to probate, okay? The living trust is a binder for a married couple, probably 120 pages, anywhere from 100 to 120 pages. And what it includes is the topics right here. So the difference between a 1 to 3, 5-page will and a living trust is crazy, because what you want to think of in a living trust is actually picturing yourself not being here, but dictating how you see the future for your family, for your beneficiaries. Down to if you have minor children at home, it should be down to who the guardians are going to be, where you want them to go to school, if they go to college, when should they get the money. I know a couple of my son's friends that were at 18 years old that inherited over $500,000 at the age of 18. because that's how it was written. 18, if we all picture ourselves back at 18, there's no way that somebody can manage $500,000 at 18. Was gone by the time he was 20.
Oh my God.
The whole $500,000. So it happened twice with my boy's friends. So you could dictate exactly how you want it. In the living trust, you have the living trust. You have a declaration of trust. We have the certificate of trust and the assignment of personal property. So the personal property would be anything that would be bank accounts, your vehicles, your furniture, your jewelry. You have a pour-over will, which is kind of like the bucket. It's all the parts inside of the bucket, and the pour-over will. Durable power of attorney. You have two power of attorneys. One power of attorney, the durable, is the financial power of attorney. So that dictates the two power of attorneys are while the person is still alive, but incapacitated. So something happens, you get into a car accident, they can't make the decisions or pay their own mortgage bills or health bills. Your durable power of attorney will have your financial matters handled. Could be different than your power of attorney for your healthcare directive. And then there's also a HIPAA waiver in there. And I always recommend that the healthcare directive, if you are the power of attorney, that you have the power of attorney either at the hospital. My mom was in the hospital for some cancer research that they were doing, and she had to do surgery, and they were questioning who I was and that I couldn't go in. Okay, so they told me at St. John's that if I just left that there, it would always be in the computer there. So if ever she goes to the hospital, it's always at St. John's, it will be there. Okay. Also, if you're any parents in here that have children that are 18 years old or older, and you don't have a power of attorney, you don't have the say over your children, okay? So if you have 18-year-old adult children, you need to have a power of attorney if you want to have any say while they're in the hospital, okay? Or if you need to help them make medical decisions or financial decisions. And then we also include the grant deed transfer. We take it from the husband and wife, their name on title, and then we put it into the name of their trust. It needs to be like that. So I had a client with me the other day that said, well, I have all these properties, but this one's not in my trust. Is that okay? And I said, absolutely not. It's not okay. You have to have it in the name of the trust. So the selling and buying of real estate needs to be put into the trust. They sell it, they take it out. And people don't think about that. My girlfriend called me last night. She said, should I change? She goes, I just realized that I bought a house. I have a trust already, but I just bought another house. Should I put it into the trust? Yes. The answer is yes. The other question that I got asked tonight was, if you, in a different situation, if you have a trust, if you're the trustee of a trust or a beneficiary and your parents pass away, what do I do? Is there something that you need to do? And the answer for that is yes. You have about 6 months, maybe to a year, the trust is no longer good if the trustees are deceased. So the trust administrator, you have to administer the trust and handle everything that's in there. The power of attorneys are no longer valid once the trustees are deceased. However, there's other things that need to be taken care of, which is the changing of the deeds into the name of the beneficiaries, unless you're selling it. Transferring the car titles, bank accounts, okay? You have to notify the Social Security office. You have to submit a death certificate to the the county tax assessor's office. There's not a whole lot of things to do, but there are things that the successor trustee would have to take care of. Probate. Probate is an area that we do these seminars. This is, like Mariana was saying, this is the first one. We used to do them like every other month before COVID. We just gather people up in various different areas of Ventura County to educate them because of the fact that the majority, probably over 80% of the homeowners today do not have a living trust. So what does that mean? That means it's going to go into probate. We prefer probate. Our firm will make probably quadruple the amount of money. That's not what we want to do. We want to do living trusts for everybody. We do not want to go to probate. Why? What happens in probate? Nobody knows? Lawyers get a lot of money. It's very expensive, and families get torn apart. Okay? What's the famous quote that everybody says? Waldo?
It's not about the money.
It's not about the money, okay? So when we have our clients come in to retain our firm for probate, that's what they say. It's not about the money. Like hell, it's not about the money. It's always about the money. Why are you guys fighting? If it's not about the money, then walk away from the house or walk away from the assets. So you put your family and loved ones into a situation that, trust me, it is about the money. It is about the money. It could be about this little widget. It doesn't matter. Why do you want to have everybody fighting over that? Probate, we make more money. It's very time consuming. The court fees, emotional impact, and it could be tied up. It takes a long time. A trust to put together, I would say, would take an hour, the first session, and then Todd would work on it for probably a couple hours, and then one more meeting. 2 hours to save a lot of headache. So probate is a horrible way to go about it. The changes that I would recommend, if you have a living trust right now and you haven't made a change in a while, the living trust is good forever, as long as you want it. The changes that I would recommend amending a living trust is if you change your trustee, power of attorneys, your beneficiaries, or if you buy or sell homes. When I wouldn't, what's not so important, and we call it a pour-over will, it's a will, but we call it pour-over because the will is going to be changing. You're going to buy a car, you're going to move from Bank of America to Chase, you're going to change a lot of little parts. Those things I wouldn't, you can have it amended, but it's not necessary. I want this widget to go to my oldest son because he asked me, Mom, can I have this widget? And so in the trust book, I would just write widget to Trevor, to my son. Okay. The trustee who administers the trust needs to give Trevor this widget. The interesting part about a living trust is there are people who think, and I kid you not, I had someone yesterday going, I do not want her as the trustee. And I said, what difference does it make? I could be your trustee. We cannot change anything in the living trust. We cannot make any changes because once the person has passed and they are deceased, it is now irrevocable. Yeah. The difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust is as soon as I pass, my boys cannot make a change. They cannot say, well, let's change Mom's thing and I'm going to make me the beneficiary. Nothing can be changed. Okay, and as a married couple, your husband or you could change your portion anytime, and things happen. What if something happened to my marriage or your marriage? you're gonna want to change it, okay? So that's the good part. There are irrevocable trusts out there, and I don't recommend that the average person would do an irrevocable trust.
There's two main bankruptcies that we deal with for consumers: Chapter 7 bankruptcy, Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Chapter 7 bankruptcy is a straight liquidation, and like any bankruptcy, it gives us, when you file it, there's a stay that goes into effect, and that stay will stop any foreclosure proceedings, etc. But in Chapter 7, you get the stay, and that's all. In the case, it's a straight liquidation. Once the bankruptcy stay is over in about 3 months, that's great, you've discharged your debts, but as far as a lender goes, you still have the same problem. Okay, so Chapter 7 is out in that situation. Chapter 13, on the other hand, is tailored with the specific intent of allowing you to keep your house. And the main way that's done is that it allows you to catch up on the arrearages that have accrued over the course of a 3 to 5 year plan. Generally, it's 5 years. Okay, so as an example, if you had fallen $30,000 behind on the mortgage, okay, you could catch that up over 5 years, which is 60 months. So to do the quick math on that, 30,000, 60 months would be about $500 a month. So what do we know already? We know that the payment plan in that Chapter 13, because the Chapter 13 is a repayment plan, that would be about $500 a month. It would have to be, because that's what it would have to take to satisfy the arrearages on the mortgage. And where this comes up a lot, especially lately, as far as a topical example, COVID. Because let's say you were in a situation where things were going okay, but now you're laid off, okay, and that income stream wasn't coming in. And now that's why we've fallen behind on the house. But now things are getting back to normal, and now we have income again. And now we're in a better spot. Well, then what you could do is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and you would pay that arrearage over 5 years. There's no penalties, no interest on those payments. And the beauty of it is also that once the court approves the plan, it's approved. So it doesn't matter whether the creditor likes it or not. They have to take it, okay, as long as the court approves it. Okay. And you also, by the way, you can also do the same thing with tax debt. Sometimes you can put some tax debt is actually dischargeable, but the ones that are not dischargeable, you could put into the Chapter 13 plan as well. And therefore, you basically have your own repayment plan with the IRS or the Franchise Tax Board, no interest. And there's one other huge benefit too, which is other debt that you have might be dischargeable. So for instance, in my example, let's say you had $500 of surplus income every month because you're back to work and things are going okay, and we've got $500 of surplus income after all the living expenses are paid. Okay, and we're $30,000 behind, but we're okay. We've got $500 a month surplus. We can pay that off. But let's say we also had $30,000 of credit card debt or medical debt on top of that. Well, that can be wiped out because the bankruptcy court's going to say, hey, as long as we can pay back that arrearage, that's fine, and the rest of it will be discharged. Gone. Because the bankruptcy court in Chapter 13 is going to look at your income and expenses really, really closely. And they're going to see how much is available to pay out. Yeah, obviously, if this is going to work, if there's going to be a feasible plan to save a house, you're going to obviously need to cover the arrearage. But let's say that's all you have. Well, that's all you're going to have to pay. But let's assume for this, that you had $1,000 of surplus income. Well, then the court's going to say, hey, they've got enough to not only catch up on the house, but they also have enough to pay back the unsecured debt, the credit card debt, the medical debt. So as you can see, it's going to be completely dependent upon what the income and expenses are. In certain situations, it could be a really great thing because it's not so often these days, but you can, in some situations, you can strip the second mortgage entirely. So if you had a first and a second, you can sometimes strip the second off completely. That doesn't happen as much anymore, and the reason for that is because to do that, you have to show that the second mortgage is wholly unsecured, meaning the value of the property doesn't even eclipse what's owed on the first. That would make the second wholly unsecured. Today, that doesn't happen as much because the market's hotter than Venus. Okay, and the equity in properties is such that you don't typically find as many seconds that are wholly unsecured. But going back to, like we were talking about 2009, believe it or not, values can fall, and they did. And at that point in time, there were lots of lien stripping going on, which was an amazing thing. I mean, people just getting rid of seconds entirely. But right now, it's not as typical, obviously, because houses have lots of equity right now.